thank you, everybody. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to come listen to our story about GoliathTech and what we have to present to you today. We're basically going to talk a little bit about what it is to be a GoliathTech franchisee, what the opportunity is about, what our market is about, and present to the many people that have signed up for this the information about running one of our locations. On the agenda today, we have a few different things. We notice there's when people are looking for a franchise, sometimes there's a lot of frustrations in what they find in the field in different types of franchises, so on and so forth. So we'll address that. We'll do a little bit of information about meeting GoliathTech, who are we, what is it we do, and so on. We're going to talk about what is it for me, what is in it for me, which is basically you, the franchisee. Why would you sign up as a franchisee? What's it all about for you as a franchisee? We're going to talk as well about the different business models, because there's, depending on your scenario, there's different ways to enter as a franchisee. We're going to talk about your journey and what you go through to set up and become a franchisee, the whole process of that. And there'll be other content as well. And then at the end, if everybody could be patient with us, we'll do a question and answer period right at the end. That way, because probably during the presentation, many or some of the questions may have been naturally answered, and the ones that are missing we'll address at the end of our little presentation here. So my name is Julian. I'm the CEO of GoliathTech. I've had many businesses in the past. Bought this company in 2013 from a gentleman who had been running it out of his garage in a small local town here. Turned it into a franchise model and basically opened about 160 or so locations since.
My name is James Buzzell. I'm the technical specialist here. So as a franchisee, when you come aboard, you and I have been working quite closely together in the beginning with all technical questions, different scenarios, that sort of thing. And just one more thing, in case you're wondering, you will have access to this presentation at the end. So you don't really need to take notes.
All right, so franchise frustrations, what does that mean? Many people go through a pretty rigorous process when they're trying to buy a franchise, and there's different issues that come up. First thing is long setup times, because it may take 5-7 months to set up. Like, let's say if you buy a Subway, you have to buy the building, you have to get all the equipment in. There's a whole lot of different aspects to getting many different types of franchises going. Another issue that comes up often is people, they work very hard and they're like, well, how come I'm working so hard and then I'm giving away so much in royalty fees? In our case, well, what I'll do is I'll address all these points, and then I'll explain to you why we're a teeny bit different than most of the franchisers out there. Another issue we have is franchisees will see is very, very strict brand guidelines. Another issue could be lack of opportunity to grow. They're limited by, certain aspects of the business. And another issue would be large setup costs. So as far as setup time goes, we're famous for not being the bottleneck in the setup process. We'll get a franchisee going, and within, 2, 3, 4 weeks, you're literally out in the field and you can be installing. Easier said than done, but we do a very we're very good at opening franchise locations. We open 1, 2, 3, sometimes more in every month. So we've got a very good process for that, very fast. We do not have royalty fees, so that's not even a factor. We're a product-based franchise, so you purchase your product from us, but there's no royalties on your sales. So that's kind of a neat perk. Strict brand guidelines. We obviously create we want to have a steady brand name out there, but we're not super vicious when it comes to those guidelines and so on and so forth. Lack of opportunity. One of the reasons I think it was about a year or two ago, we got an award from Entrepreneur Magazine And it was the top 10 best investment versus your return on your money. And the reason we got that award is because they said, you're not limited in your capability as a franchisee to sell. So you could sell 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million within your territory. Unlike, let's say you started a restaurant franchise. Well, there's only so many people that can sit in that restaurant. There's only so many open hours in a day. So there's a limited amount of, there's always a cap to the maximum you do in that kind of opportunity, or many other franchises, where in our case, there's so many different aspects of it. We'll talk about those. Setup costs, it's an extremely inexpensive franchise. At 49.5, basically you're buying into a massive system with a major brand, which has a network globally. And we're going to get into that as well. As I was saying, the franchise cost is around 49.5, or it is 49.5. Comparing to open, some of those more run-of-the-mill brand names out there, where you can spend $1 million setting up your franchise, it's a very inexpensive investment. On our side, we had a choice. We could have either opened hundreds of locations ourselves, which was one of our options, or we could have chosen the franchise model. And we decided to go with the franchise model because, we made a massive investment in a factory, which would not be a viable business locally. So we needed to access global markets. So then that's why we chose the franchise model and made it. So as a franchisee, you're buying into a very big infrastructure at a very, very inexpensive cost. So you're not spending millions of dollars, you're spending 49.5. It's very low investment. Many of the franchisers out there have extremely high demand. So they, whether it could be a 25-year term, it could be minimum net worth of 1.5 million, guidelines that are so rigid that you're measured to the moment. Whereas with the GoliathTech system, you're running your own business, you're managing your own time. You're not, somebody's not going to call you if you're not at work at 9:01. We expect people to take care of their customers and be there for them, obviously. But at the same time, we're reasonable when it comes to the guidelines and so on and so forth. Typically, or many of the franchise chains out there have extreme complexity to their setups. One of the reasons in 2013 when I bought the business was because I liked the simplicity of the product, and I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to turn this into a franchise chain, it's very simple. So we don't have to have 700 hours of training to be able to get someone up and running. Our basic training is basically 40 hours, so 1 week of training, and then after that you move on. And we're not saying you're in business and you're off on your own. We're there for at least 6, 8, actually forever, really. But for the first 6 months, we're right beside you, making sure that you're set up, everything's working out. But you're up and running and you're making money a few weeks later, as opposed to hundreds of hours of training. So we're a very, very fast setup. Let's see. Let's talk about GoliathTech itself and our team. I shall go back to that one. I'll do it in order. So who is GoliathTech? GoliathTech is a company that was founded in 1994, that grew or converted into a franchise chain in 2013 when I bought it. Since then, as I was saying earlier, we've opened about 160 locations. We've got tons of different awards from many different entities that measure performance of franchise chains, whether it's not necessarily in construction, it could be from McDonald's to Avis to banks, whatever it may be. We did win, as I was mentioning earlier, our top 10 investments on your money versus your return. And obviously we have low royalty fees as well, or no royalty fees, better.
So Julian, of course, has been talking quite a bit about the business aspect of GoliathTech, but you may be asking, well, what would I be doing as a franchisee? Well, as a franchisee, you would be running your own business, installing our helical piles for basically any kind of construction project that needs any kind of a foundation or needs to be anchored to the ground. So what is a helical pile? A helical pile is literally a large screw you install in the ground with our calibrated hydraulic drive head. And with that calibration, during the installation, measuring the resistance, we can calculate exactly how much compression, as in how much we can put on the pile, and how much tension, how much it takes to pull the pile out of the ground, using our calibrated equipment. Some of our franchisees have start out very small. Some tag it onto their existing business, if you will. For instance, it will be a deck builder who has been looking for a better solution for his foundation to put on his decks. So he contacts us, realizes that helical piles are ideal for decks, for instance. So that is basically a helical pile. How are helical piles revolutionizing the construction industry? Well, in the next couple of slides, I'll talk more about the advantages, but how is it revolutionizing? Well, basically there's two ways. One of them is by the sheer ease and efficiency of installing a helical pile. We can install a helical pile that can support 30,000 pounds of compression load in about 10 minutes with an excavator that weighs under 5,000 pounds. But the real way it's revolutionizing is it's making areas that were unbuildable before suddenly buildable, as in the soil is very soft. So traditionally we'd have to go in with large excavation equipment, remove the bad soil, put in the proper drainage, fill in with better soil, compaction, et cetera, et cetera. With helical piles, we can literally go in with our small excavation equipment, install our pile, and as long as our helix or our load-bearing plate is installed past the bad or the weaker soil into the firmer soil, we can build on those helical piles immediately.
Okay, so why buy a franchise within the construction industry? The construction industry, one of the wonderful things about the construction industry is it's eternally growing. We have there's never a shortage of roads being built, of new buildings going up, of even in poor economies, people keep building and so on and so forth. There's no shortages. When people aren't building new buildings, well, then they're renovating their existing buildings because they may not have the same budgets they do in a poorer economy. But the market, the global market for construction is on and has been for years and years, a constant rise. So that the market itself is excellent. How can a helical pile business be good for me? It's thinking, okay, I'm not a contractor. I've never held a hammer in my life. Why would I buy a helical pile business in the construction industry? People who want to start a helical pile business, they can't think of it as a construction franchise. Yes, it's in the construction industry, but the people that run the actual franchise are not, we're not looking for people who are good with a hammer and a nail. We're looking for people who have very strong business sense. You'll hire in the talent, you'll hire in the crews and so on and so forth. We want you to understand how to do the piles yourself, how to use them, how they work. But the role of the owner is to run that business from a business point of view as a businessman. Sales, get out there, meet contractors, bring on repeat business. That's the real thing. So who's it for? Entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, could be both. People that are out there that are looking to start their own business, but they don't want to spend, like we've done here, millions and millions of dollars building this massive factory. They want an inexpensive way to get in. So, at a very inexpensive franchise fee, they're basically buying into a massive system. So an entrepreneur can access a very large business without having to pay for millions of dollars to build the factory to support it. That's the whole, the hand-in-hand part in a franchise opportunity. Some people are looking at, they're looking for a new business. They want to get out there. They want to find a new business. If they don't know how to get into business, well, we facilitate that. Other people, they're go-getters, but they don't know, how it is they're going to They're going to make it come together. What is it we're going to do, and how we're going to help you with that. We'll show you how to do that, right? So what's in it for me as a franchisee? Why would someone want to buy a franchise of any type, or more specifically, our franchise, obviously? There are huge benefits when you're getting into a franchise chain. Historically, when there's many different things you can look at, but when the economies are good and when the economies are bad, franchisers always stand the test of time. They always go through the high and low economy. So there's a very good stability behind it. In our case, we don't have royalty fees. We don't limit your growth. You're not limited by the number of chairs in your store. We have a training, which is basically 5 full days. It's your boot camp. But then obviously there's the constant follow-up training that could last months and years, really. There's very quick, easy steps to go through to get yourself kicked off. But we don't expect that you do it on your own. We're there right with you, like I was explaining. One of the most important reasons you buy a franchise is to access an existing frame. You're an entrepreneur, but within a structure. That's where I was saying before, an intrapreneur, someone that's an entrepreneur, but within a structured environment. Okay.
Superior technology. So we actually have a number of patents. They're a little complicated to get into right now, so we're just trying to do the quick overview. We have a number of patents that would help you be very, very competitive, actually corner the market in many areas as a franchisee using our helical piles as opposed to a competitor's helical piles. We are 100% compliant to all local building codes, be it municipal, federal, whatever they are, we adhere to literally all of them. And for whatever reason, if you became a franchisee and in your local area, we had an awareness problem, if you will. The local municipality, the local inspector wasn't aware of helical piles and how it worked and wanted something very specific in the code. And it could be something as simple as the inspector had to be on site during the installation. No problem. I assure you, we will help you meet any local code that is not the norm, if you will. We have a 30-year warranty. Our galvanization is guaranteed for 30 years. And that means after 30 years, the helical pile still has 100% of its capacity. It didn't disappear after 30 years. And that 30-year warranty was tested in the worst possible case scenario soil. So in the average soil we deal with, a helical pile will last well over 100 years. We are rated #1 in the helical pile industry for many reasons, one of which is our ability to help our franchisees design specific attachment points, work through very complicated, difficult projects. There's many reasons why we're superior to concrete foundations, and I'll touch on that shortly in the next few slides. Okay, superior installation. So one of the many advantages of helical piles are we can install a relatively small helical pile that has an enormous amount of compression, again, the weight we can put on, and tension capacity with a relatively small machine. You can purchase a 4,000 or 5,000 pound excavator with rubber tracks, and you can install piles that can support up to 30,000 pounds of compression load. So when there's concern about someone's established backyard, they would like a deck, a gazebo, so on and so forth, we can show up with our mini excavator, literally put plywood on the ground, and we can advance with our mini excavator, making 0 footprint. Not only that, helical piles are 100% reusable and recyclable. So if plans change in the future, we can go back, unscrew the helical piles, and there is literally zero footprint, and we can use that helical pile for the next project.
Okay, so world-class support, what does that mean? You're buying a franchise, you expect to get this massive back end, and that's what this is really all about. you're going to go through different stages as you're getting to know us. But obviously, the first thing is we have to discuss the opportunity and sort of exchange on what this is all about. So that's going to be kind of the first step of looking at one of our franchises. After that, there's going to be certification with our experts, training and follow-up training. You could be running your franchise for 6 months, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've come into a scenario where I'm in such and such situation, and such different type of build happens out in the field. And there's different ways. It could be one of our experts internally that helps you and explains to you how to do it. But there's also this camaraderie within the chain where all the franchisees share through a platform we have where they can share with each other. So if you're going to attempt to do a certain type of job, you can go onto that platform and say, hey, look, I've got such and such scenario. Has any other franchisees done that? And all of them will kind of chip in and give you their input, so that they're very strong as well. So you get that from both sides. When you buy a franchise, there's the whole growth aspect to it. We as a company are growing extremely fast, about 30% a year, year on year, every year. And our franchisees as well are growing very fast. So we grow and they grow as well. So it's sort of, our chain is expanding in size, and we're opening new locations, but each location themselves is growing at a very, very strong rate as well. As I was saying a bit earlier, the support on the job is obviously a huge thing, but it doesn't only include field support. It includes marketing, product ordering, technical support, and so on and so forth. Okay.
So our success stories. Now, you may be wondering, back to us a few slides ago, well, I'm not a contractor. I don't have any experience in, construction. I don't know how to run a machine. I've literally never screwed in a screw. We literally never discourage anyone because, as Julian said, it's all about the person. Literally, some of our most successful franchisees have no experience at all. Darcy, for instance, Darcy and her husband, Ryan, before they came to our building for the boot camp training, they literally rented an excavator and dug some holes in their backyard. That's how little experience they had. And that was only a few years ago, and look how well they're doing now. So it may be a bit of an advantage initially that you know how to operate a machine, you have experience, but I assure you, it's definitely not a deal breaker. It just means that the learning curve will be a little steeper in the beginning. But again, it's all about the person, and it's all about their motivation to do well. Lisa is actually, as a matter of fact, she's a city inspector, but her partner, he was a singer in a band, if you can believe it. And again, they're doing amazingly well. Max, he did have experience in construction excavation, but like I said, it's all about the person. It's nothing to do really with the experience you have in the construction excavation industry.
So steps to ownership. First step is initial contact. You contact one of our franchise sales specialists. They're going to give you, the basic information of what it is that we do, the basic generalities. You sign an NDA, and then we send you the FDD, which is our franchise disclosure document. Then there's a whole step of getting to know us, where we exchange. You'll speak with a bunch of different people on our team, whether it's technical specialists, whether it's people in CS, where it depends what your specific questions you have, and so on and so forth. Next thing we're going to look at the numbers, make sure that from a financial point of view, all of the investment on your side is meeting what you are expecting as a franchise owner. Every franchise has different investment levels and so on and so forth. This investment it's very low, but nevertheless, you still have have to have some good solid money to be able to put together this business, because we're not, we expect each one of these franchise locations to be big. Like we're looking for solid big companies. We're not looking to open, mom and pop stores. Another thing you'll end up doing is talking with other franchisees. That's quite an important step, because we as the franchisor, we always listen to our franchisees and so on and so forth, but we're not them. So they'll give you the story from the other side, and they'll be able to tell you, from their experience through setup stages or whatever it is you want to know, from from an onboarding point of view, from a long-term point of view, what they went through and stages and so on and so forth, and how they they'll actually help you through your decision-making process. So you need to speak to I would suggest at least 2, 3, 4 franchisees during your setup process. After that, assuming everything goes well and you're ready to roll, we sign an agreement. Ideally, you come to our head office where we do the training. We meet the team. You'll meet all the departments, whether it's engineering, whether it's customer service, whether it's production, training, management, so on and so forth. You'll go through your training and certification process. So that week of boot camp, we call it, because it kind of never ends. We're joined at the hip for life. You'll launch your business, and then literally the next day you're ready to take orders. So you know, people have been known, it's most often they'll get back, and then within a week or so they've got a job and they're ready to go. It's a little bit of nervousness. It's typical, you know, first job and so on and so forth in front of the customer, but we're there. We're on the phone with you, or we're live, depending where you are, and the availabilities and all that. But it's important that you know that we're right there with you. So, okay, from a certification point of view, we have ISO 9001 certified. ISO 9001 is basically a certification of quality control. We have ISO 14001 certification. So it's basically best practice in environmental practices. So we're certified to ISO 14001. We have ICCES certification, which is the requirements for US state laws and so on and so forth to be able to install helical piles that we've gone through the testing and validation process. We have CWB and AWS basically certification, which is our welders on our production floor are certified to the requirements, whether it's the US or Canada or wherever it may be. We have UKCA, which is a specific certification to quality certification to be able to work in the UK market. We have CE, which is very similar to UKCA, but it's for the rest of Europe. ACQ and CA, which are certifications on the quality of the products and how products interact. So, example, you can't have steel with aluminum that could create corrosion. So all of our products are thought through so that when you connect ours to the next one, you'll meet, you know, you won't have that corrosion aspect, and that's what ACQ and CA is about. Then we also have CCMC, which is the Canadian Construction Materials Center, which is specific to Canada, a little bit like ICCES in the US. We have a bunch of awards, but let's look at these ones here. Canadian Business Review, Best General Construction in Quebec 2022, Canadian Franchise Association 2021 Franchisee's Choice Designation, Entrepreneur Magazine, we get ranked every year pretty much. We get also sub awards too, like the one I was mentioning earlier, Best Investment versus Return. So every year they look and they rank companies. It's like the Fortune 500, but in the franchise industry. Then aside from that, they have each month different awards they give out to different franchisors, but they're not easy to get. Obviously, you can't. They do it based on facts and based on numbers. So it's all mathematical. Franchise Gator, top emerging franchise in 2021. So they were looking at us as basically saying we are, you know, in the top 100 best, fastest growing and emerging franchise chains out there. All right, so start your journey. Okay, so there's different models. First model is become a franchisee. You do not have a business. You are an individual who is looking to start a business, and you want to go through the whole setup process of becoming a franchisee. This is the most typical model. You know, people come from different aspects. Somebody could be you know, have sold a previous business. It could be their first business. They might have had a corporate job. This happens a lot, actually. We got someone that's had a corporate job and they want to basically start their own business. Feel that's been, you know, they've been 12 years in a corporation and so on and so forth, and they want to run their own business. So that leads you to become a franchisee type of standard, typical model. Convert your business is, you have a business, you've been running it for 20 years or 10 years or 5 years or whatever it may be, and you know, you realize that maybe this business is not as profitable as I wanted it to be. It's not getting me what I wanted to get as far as, monetarily, as far as freedom. I don't know what it may be, and everybody's got their different criteria. So that's basically taking your existing business and converting it into a GoliathTech franchise, even if it's not in the construction industry. Cross-selling opportunity. So now I've got a business that's actually in the construction industry, and I say to myself, well, wait a minute, I've got a series of customers who buy all kinds of different products from me that are directly in the construction industry. If I add this franchise onto my existing offering, well, now I can take my existing this product and sell it to my already existing chain of customers. So basically, you're increasing your offering per customer that you already have. Okay, what is the cost? The franchise fee itself is $49,500. As I was saying earlier, it's a very inexpensive way to get into business. Total investment, it can range, depends how hard you want to push the bar at the beginning. So it can range from $100,000 up to $241,000. That would be your franchise fee included, your equipment and some inventory. You're already leasing your pickup, your trailer, your excavator, and so on and so forth. And that's your your beginning investment range. There's no royalty fees at all. We haven't talked about this yet. We have a 6% of product purchase goes to an advertising program. Okay, so why do we do that? As a franchisor, our job is to nationally push our brand across all the potential customers for our franchisees. So all the franchisees contribute to a fund, which basically gets used to spread, could be Google ads, could be YouTube video pop-ups, could be, there's all this different online marketing that goes on. It could be, radio ads. There's all kinds of different aspects to marketing, obviously, you can imagine. But this global marketing fund gives a lot of horsepower to the brand and to the chain to be able to get leads to do real jobs for real people.
You want to talk about the low risk equipment you have to buy, truck, excavator, unlike the ovens, for instance?
Yeah, of course.
So Julian kind of touched on this. So we have, up to 241K of investment, but the equipment that you need to buy is very low risk equipment, if you will. So if you're calculating the risk in coming on board with us, anything you have to buy, for instance, would be a truck, a trailer, an excavator, and or skid steer. And all of that is low risk purchases. You can easily sell, especially in the economy right now, a truck, trailer, and excavator. Chances are more than what you literally paid for it. Unlike other franchises, for instance, McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, when you have to buy a McDonald's specialty hamburger oven, for instance, there's risk there because how are you gonna get rid of that oven if you're calculating your risk? You have to literally sell it back to McDonald's or another franchisee who will be using it. Unlike a regular trailer, excavator, you put it back on the market and then it's literally risk-free.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see now. I don't actually see the questions up yet. Either that or we don't.
Go to the top.
We're gonna open up the Q&A for questions. So if you want to raise your hand, if you want to speak up, you can raise your hand and we'll allow you to say something, or you can type in your questions at the bottom. There's a Q&A bubble. You can type in your questions and we can answer them as well.
Yeah, so we obviously stopped sharing the presentation. So yeah, it should pop up.
So does anybody out there at this point have any questions? Or were we so thorough that there's absolutely nothing left to ask?
Another thing to keep in mind as well is if you have more specific scenarios you'd like to discuss, go on our website, contact us, and someone will get back to you in the very near future. And then we can have perhaps a call even with myself and one of our salespeople, and we can discuss any more specific questions you have.
There's one question up which says, how do you determine the size of your territories? So we cut up, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in the US, all the same system. the entire, every geographical area into maps. So one map is basically 80,000 addresses minus high rises, because you're not going to put a helical pile where a high rise is. So 80,000 houses minus high rises is one map, but a franchise territory is made of 3 maps. So when you purchase a franchise territory, we're going to give you choices of different areas you can work, and then people will assemble the 3 maps that would sort of best constitute where they would want to work. So that's how we determine the territory size. And it was done by a third party as well. So all the territories are balanced and equal in opportunity. It's just a question of, deciding where is it you physically want to work versus your current location where you want to actually live, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we also have a question from Judith.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Judith.
I don't see that.
Oh, I think she had a question. I don't know if.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, my question is, what available territories do you have in Northern Ontario, particularly around Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario?
So most of Canada is sold out. Luckily, a lot of the northern areas are not sold out, so there are areas available. I don't know off by heart which area. Sault Ste. Marie may be available. If it's all right with you, if you could, pop your email on screen, I'll have one of the franchise rep that takes care of Ontario send you the maps of what's available specifically in Ontario.
That's great. I'll just on the ask a question, I'll Q&A. I'll put in my email address.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Yeah, and we'll have for Ontario, it's Sophie. I'll have Sophie call you and she'll let you know what's available. Is there an initial inventory amount that you're required to purchase? Okay, so inventory purchases, there's no initial inventory that you have to purchase. During the first year, there's a minimum we expect people to buy. Second year, and obviously it increases as the franchise goes forward. It starts at 25 and grows up to 50,000 in the 5th year. The reality is that most of the franchisees do the 5th year minimum in their first year. The reason we put these minimums there is because we don't want people buying a contract for a franchise, sticking it in a drawer, and then not working the territory, and then basically GoliathTech loses out because it won't be going after that market. So the minimums, are not something. If you were to work and expect to only do your minimums, I would say don't even bother buying the franchise. you want to you want to attain 50 times your minimums. Minimums are like I said, just there from a contractual point of view to make sure people actually do get to work and hunt and farm those territories. Steve, can a franchisee sell and install in open areas? Yeah, basically the rule is you are allowed to sell piles anywhere in the country as long as it's not within the territory of another franchisee. So if you're in Michigan as an example, and the whole state is free, and you buy one territory in Michigan, you can install anywhere in Michigan, actually anywhere in the US, as long as it's not within another franchisee's territory.
But I'll just add, by doing that, what Julian just said, by doing that, you are leaving the territory open to be purchased by someone else potentially. So you may be, you see where I'm going with this, you may be working the area relatively hard, but it's not your territory, and you could be working it for someone else potentially. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, what happens a lot is people will start, they'll start within their area, and then they're like, okay, well, I'm going to start doing jobs in this other area, and then they'll either end up acquiring that area because they'll, often what happens is our franchisees, they buy one and they end up buying another, not in the beginning. You take your time, could be a year later, could be 2 years later, 5 years later, doesn't matter. One thing that's important to realize, we actually have some franchisees that have a lot of territory, but we find that most of the work they do is within an hour's drive of their office. So having lots and lots of territory might be, might be a very sort of a great thought and a sort of, but it's maybe not necessarily mathematically the best thing to do. You're actually better off to have a tighter territory and maximize the work within your territory than to drive, 4 hours across town to get a job for 50 piles where you can do the same within your territory. So we try to push people to concentrate on their area, but obviously if it's an area where there's nobody right now, we're obviously happy to hear about that. But, we don't want you to drive 5 hours to put in 10 piles. It's kind of counterproductive. Okay.
So what are various lengths of piers? So our standard length is 7 feet. That's pile and extension. So maybe you're asking, how deep do we have to go? So if we have a 7-foot lead section of our actual helical pile with our load-bearing plate, if we need to go deeper because of weaker soil, we put an extension on top with through bolts, and then we literally just keep going down. I'm not sure if that was your question or the actual length, but our actual length of the sections are 7, our semi-standard are 3.5 and 10. So those are our standard lengths. But we are the manufacturer. If for whatever reason you did ask for a 20-foot pile, for instance, we could manufacture it. However, something to keep in mind would be the actual excavator you have installing the pile. That often comes to your limiting factor because you literally just don't have the reach to install a very, very tall pile. Does that answer your question? And now maybe you're thinking, what is our average length? So, okay, I'm not sure where you are, Paul, but one thing we have to keep in mind, especially in the northern states and in Canada, is frost depth. We have to be sure that our load-bearing plate, the actual helix, is below the frost depth. That's one thing. So sometimes if a 3.5, it just doesn't have the depth to get below the frost. So if in our area, for instance, our frost is 48 inches. So that would be our minimum. So typically we would use just a 7-foot pile, install it. We would just by design get more capacity than we actually need for a deck, for instance. But yeah, with the that's one thing we really have to keep in mind is our frost depth. That's like the number one rule we have to get below that.
Do you have any other questions out there? Oh, here we are. Okay, we require a 2-foot depth. So if your frost depth is 2 foot in your area, in theory, you can use a 3.5, as long as you can attain the torque required for the bearing capacity and of course the lateral strength. That's maybe more for the training. It's a little more complicated, but
so one thing when we do say torque, if you can imagine, if you go to the garage and have your tires put on your car, you see them put the lug nuts on with a large wrench and they literally twist it until it clicks. It's the same theory behind installing our helical piles. We install those helical piles to a specific torque. So if we can imagine a large wrench on top, we're installing it until we hear the click. And through many years of testing and a ton of math, we can calculate exactly how much that pile can support compression and tension wise by the installation torque or the resistance in the soil that we reached.
Well,
thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Are we no other questions? Going once. All right. Okay, well, I guess thank you everybody, because we understand, we all have busy days, and we very much appreciate you taking the time to look at GoliathTech, and we hope that we can connect and hopefully have you run one of our locations. Please stay in touch. On our website, you can look at our GoliathTechFranchise.com, which is our franchise page, or GoliathTechPiles.com, which is the franchisee page, which is the product page for the public. And stick in contact with us, and you never know, we might end up in business together. That'd be great.
Thanks again, everyone, for your time.